What is up, guys? Imran here. I wanted to make a video about Viktor. Viktor is one of my favorite new AI tools. I've been using it for the past 3 months or so. I've been using it every single day for the past 3 months. I like it a lot, and I want to share kind of my experience, but also I want to show you guys how you can build your own Viktor. In case you don't want to pay for it, or maybe you might have like some specific needs around security, privacy, or maybe just want to play around with it on your own. I want to walk you guys through like the basics of how to build it. So what is Viktor? Viktor is an AI employee that sits inside of your Slack or Teams. Wherever you and your team work, you can just add Viktor inside of it, and you can tag it like it's a real team member, and you can tell it to go do stuff. So you can say, hey, go grab my Google Analytics for the day, or hey, can you draft up LinkedIn posts based on these notes that I took from the last meeting or whatever it is. You can give it like these kind of complex tasks that use multiple different software services that you have set up. So one of the secret sauces of Viktor, like all of the new AI tools, is that you can kind of integrate it with all these different applications that you use, right? So you can see mine here is integrated with Google Drive, Notion, PostHog, Google Calendar, all these things that I use every single day. And essentially, the magic of Viktor is that you can tell it to go do stuff inside those applications like you would a real teammate. So if you wanted to replicate this, essentially what Viktor really is that it's an LLM, a large language model, inside of an agent harness, which is just a way for it to have tool calls, for a way for it to have skills, a way for it to have memory. And then that's all integrated inside of your messaging app. And it also integrates with like all of the applications that you use every single day. So at its core, it's essentially the same thing as, if you wanted to build your own version, you could just take Hermes agent off the shelf, or you could take OpenClaw, or you could even take Pi coding agent, which is another agent harness. These are all agent harnesses. Agent harnesses, like I said, are just a way for you to give your large language model superpowers, right? So the superpowers here being, you want it to have web search, you want it to be able to make API calls to other applications, you want it to be able to have memory so that it remembers what it's been able to do successfully. Essentially, those are broken down into tools, skills, and then obviously like the actual model itself. So an agent harness essentially gives your LLM tools, which is like, web search, scraping the web, maybe doing some like complex formatting of like data and things like that. And it gives it skills, right? Skills are essentially like those skill files that you've seen inside Claude Code, or maybe people have shared them with you. They're just like a set of instructions or like a breakdown of like instructions on how to do a certain skill. So if I wanted to write LinkedIn posts, for example, I could write a LinkedIn post skill that specifies all of my like criteria, right? Like what is the language I want to use? How long should it be? What is my writing style? Like I would specify that, I'd put it in a file and I'd call it a skill. So a harness essentially gives your LLM skills, tools, and memory. So Pi coding agent, OpenClaw, and Hermes agent all give, or these are all harnesses that kind of do the same thing, but in different ways, right? So Hermes is self-learning. So as you successfully complete a task, it kind of learns over time and it builds up its memory. So if you want to build your own Viktor, it's actually really simple. You can pick one of these off-the-shelf harnesses, Hermes, OpenClaw, Pi, or probably one of the hundreds of other ones that exist out there. Claude Code is probably one of them you can use as well. Then you need to actually connect it to your Slack, right? So if you're using Hermes agent has a built-in Slack gateway that you can use. If you're using OpenClaw, I believe OpenClaw also has a Slack gateway. I'm not 100% sure about that. And then Pi coding agent, you might have to roll it yourself. Not 100% sure. Again, you can easily Google search these things, but I think the whole point of this video is to show you what to search, essentially. So you would pick one of these kind of open source harnesses, you would connect it to your Slack, and then the secret sauce is that you would connect it to either Pipedream or Composio. So under the hood inside of products like Viktor, they use Composio and they use Pipedream in order to give you the ability to connect to over 1,000 applications. So Composio, if you sign up for an account, you'll be able to, at the drop of an API key and like maybe like a skill, you'll be able to connect to over 1,000 like applications. So whether you guys are using Google Drive or Notion or Google Docs or Google Analytics, or maybe you have some email marketing that you guys are using, whatever software you guys are using, you can use Composio to let your agent connect to that thing. It's actually really genius, right? So instead of you having to go in and constantly reconfigure all these connections, grab API keys, worry about storing them securely, you can just add Composio to whatever agent you're using. And then it'll just like be able to connect to all the apps that you guys as a team use. So that handles the connections part. The open source harnesses, they give your agent tool calling, they give your agent memory, and they give your agent skills. And then the last thing, all you have to do is actually connect it to where you and your team hang out. So if you really like the product, but maybe you have some weird limitation, or you just want to try, rolling your own and you need more customization, you really just need those three things, right? You need a way for your agent to connect to your messaging app. You need some sort of agent harness that works for you. And you need to either use Composio or Pipedream in order to make it happen. So yeah, if you've been curious about Viktor, if you've seen the massive growth and them raising a $75 million round a little over a month ago for having such an amazing product, this was just kind of a brief about kind of what's going on under the hood. That being said, the product is really good. I use it every single day. I highly recommend it. And there's probably a lot more that they're doing under the hood. I've definitely oversimplified it, right? Of course, they have... And, they're ready for enterprise, right? So there's probably things that they do there, for their enterprise customers. And they're obviously writing, they have their own custom harness, right? So maybe they're doing things differently from Hermes and OpenClaw and Pi, right? But the underlying principle is the same. If you want to build a digital teammate, if you want to make AI an actual hire on your team, you need to give it a harness. You need to give it the ability to connect to the applications you guys use, and you need to be able to talk to it in a way that makes a lot of sense for you and your team. So I hope you guys learned something, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.